In the last video I brought home this cast iron surface plate. Let's talk a little bit about what they're for and how they're used. If you work in a factory or have worked in a factory and then you've done anything requiring precision gauging and measuring, then you would be familiar with these. These surface plates were a flat plane, a 0 point where you could measure things using various measuring equipment like this vernier height gauge or these dial indicators where we could check heights or compare heights from one to the other or determine the height according to a blueprint or to a process. But you always needed a place to begin, a place to start, a datum point, and the surface plate was always that datum point. Now this one is circa 1940-ish. This is, again, cast iron. Today they use almost exclusively granite. But back in the day, back in the early days of precision manufacturing, these surface plates were made out of cast iron anyway. There were techniques that they used for getting these things to be as level and flat as they could. Skilled craftsmen would come in with chisels and they would do what we would call scraping in the surface and getting it as flat as it could. My dad and my uncle, who ran Rhodey's Gun Shop, you've seen that on the page here before if you've been here long enough. My dad and my uncle were forever buying out old collections of firearms and related equipment. And I remember when they bought this plate. I don't remember exactly the reason for it. I don't remember if there were any firearms involved in this or not. But this belonged to an old gunsmith slash machinist. And I can remember, this was almost 40 years, 35, 40 years ago. They asked me if I'd go and help them get this brute out of this guy's basement. And we did. We managed to get it out. Everybody was much younger back then. This thing has to weigh seriously 450 pounds. It is huge, and it rests. This cast iron plate rests on an oak base, and the oak base itself is tremendously heavy. So you put the whole combination together, and you've got a mass, which every surface plate needs a certain amount of mass, and that mass helps control the flatness of the plate itself. So as we go through temperature changes, it doesn't vary. It doesn't vary enough to affect the gauging that you're doing. So they got this plate along with a bunch of other stuff. They got some reloading equipment from back in the 30s and the 40s. Some of that's still in the collection, and we may bring that over at a later date and sort of show you that as well. But today's video, I want to get this thing cleaned up. It's been in cold storage, and unfortunately when I took the cover off, there were a couple places that are rusty, and I need to get that rust off, so we'll do that today. I also want to go in with some cleaning rags, clean off this oak base, make this thing shine again, because frankly, again, this is all period materials, the iron and the base itself. That's period oak. It's long ago. So right now I just want to kind of go over this with sandpaper. Now I'm using a fairly mild sandpaper. I'm using 220, and I'm going to oil that sandpaper so that we get a nice gliding surface, sort of like wet sanding a car, if you will. Because I don't want to be taking a lot of material off. I just want to get the staining out that I can. I'm going to do 220, then I'll follow that up with 320, then I'll follow that up with a hone. So let's go ahead and do this. And while I'm doing this, I'll tell you some of the story about this plate, or what I've learned about this plate, who manufactured it, and the fact that it was used in some manufacturing plant during the Second World War, and it belonged to some company that was connected to the Detroit Ordnance Department. So that'll be something that it would be fun to discover what company actually owned this plate during the war. Let's go ahead and get cleaning this thing up. You could never do this to a granite plate. Probably not even the best thing to be using sandpaper on the iron plate as well, but again, we're using some pretty mild sandpaper. I use the same technique when I polish metal for gun restorations. You can see that in some of my past videos. Using sandpaper and WD-40 or some kind of machine oil to help lubricate. I've been doing that for years and I've always had very, very good luck. The oil helps to lubricate the surface, but it also helps pull away contaminants. This section right here is going to be a little bit of a problem because there is some pitting. So we need to see how this turns out. Well, actually that came out pretty nice. All right, let's do some more. It actually feels really nice, but the staining I think is probably going to be there forever. And let's switch over to a finer grit. Let me get some of this off. So this piece of hard maple, it was surfaced by me on the mill, so it's really flat in and of itself. I use that for when I sand a lot of very flat surfaces, like when I build my guitars. You know, I want a nice flat plane so that I'm not getting waves in my guitar tops. All right, let's do this one more time. So I'm going to use 320. Same technique. We'll start out with the oil. I'm sure there's somebody out there that has opinions and thoughts, and if you want to share them, I'm all for it. Just please do it respectfully. I'm always willing to listen and learn. If you're a troll and a bully, find another place. Actually, if you know any information about these old surface plates, if you've encountered them, used them, had experience with them, or even if you know something about the old ordnance system, because I have a contract number on this plate. And if I could associate that contract with whatever that company or that ordnance division did, that would be really kind of a fun history to talk about. Because you know that's our mission here, to kind of hold on to and share American industrial history. So if you know anything or can point me in the right direction, I would really, really appreciate that, and that would be some good stuff we could do here on the channel. So another thought, my YouTube demographics say that I have a lot of viewers who are 50 plus. I like to joke 50 to dead, but 50 plus, and I'm pretty confident that any of you in that age category kind of boomer folks. A lot of you, I'm sure, have experience in machine shops with machines, and probably a really good possibility or chance that you might have experience gauging. Even some of you guys who are inspectors, I know a lot of them. I used to think they were my enemies. It's like they had one mission, and that was to make things perfect. And my mission was always to make them to tolerance. If you're a former inspector, weigh in. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. All right, let's turn around and do the hone. I'm not sure how necessary the hone is, but let's go ahead and, oh, feel that drag. Oh, there we go. I know a lot of my viewers from that later age group. I know a lot of them worked with their hands. They worked in maintenance and repair. You got a couple guys who were former oil burner repair people. I mean, Earl, you know who you are. You know, every day, you know, working with their hands, working with their experience and their knowledge, making things better for people. That's sort of what a surface plate means to me. You know, it's this idea that in America we could do things, we could create things, we could build things, we could make the world a better place. All right, I think we're done here. Let's break the stone belt. All right, let's clean it up. Ooh, shiny. I'm going to use some denatured alcohol and try to get the oil and debris out of the scrape marks, the scraping marks that the surface scrapers would use when they tried to get this thing as level and flat as they can. You can see that what I want to do here is use a dial indicator and run it over the plate and see how flat the plate is. Now, my dial indicator is new within the last 10 or 15 years. But this I actually got from another old machinist. I bought out a bunch of his measuring equipment, God, 25 years ago anyway. Cleaned it all up, and I've been using this piece for years. Let's see how well this moves. Okay, moves pretty nice. All right, so let's see how it works. All right, let me get the camera down here and then we'll go over the plate and we'll see what the needle tells us about the plate. That's pretty flat. That's pretty flat. Oh Lord. It's all the flat that I'm going to need for the things that I'm going to use this for. I don't need to measure in tenths. You know, if this thing is flat within, well, it's flat within the range of this, which is 6 inches, that's more than flat enough for building guitars and doing the restoration work that I'm doing. I'm pretty happy with that. So the last little piece of maintenance that I want to do to this is I want to clean this wooden base. It's got years and years and years of grime and dirt and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to use just some simple grease lightning to get both the dirt and the grease off from it. As I spend some time looking at this construction, and this was built by whoever did this was a real craftsman. All the joints are tight, and they're actually beveled. Put little bevels on all the corners. They machine those in. This is really well done. I mentioned this was all oak. Well, the fact is that this top is a maple top, and then the base itself is oak. They used carriage bolts, and it's just an amazing piece of construction. I'm almost as excited by the base as I am the top. So on the side of this plate is a identification plate, and it says it was manufactured by Machine Products Corp. Out of Detroit, Michigan. It's got a date section that's not filled in, which is unfortunate, but I did some research on Machine Products Corp, and it is now apparently a defunct company, out of business. Had to go into past records to find it. So it was a real company. It was a real deal, and according to the source, the online source that I had, they actually built measuring equipment. That was what the company did. It produced surface plates, cast iron surface plates, and other types of measuring equipment. It doesn't give a lot of details, so that's about what I learned, is that they actually were a company that built measuring equipment. I was telling you I was going to put some finish on this. I think I've changed my mind. When I start to clean this thing up, it really does begin to shine. So I mentioned that I believe this to be, or perceive this to be, used by a company during the Second World War, because it said on the other side, on the other plate, it has the Detroit Ordnance Department. And when I looked that up, it apparently is during the war. They had ordnance divisions across the country, and I don't know enough about it that I assume that they were responsible for all the contracts that the government issued for building arms and munitions during the war, and various other products, I'm sure. And I would love to understand more about that. You can do some research. It brings you to the National Archives, but it's kind of difficult at times to navigate. So if there's any of you out there that know more about the ordnance departments or the divisions of ordnance during the war, I'd really be interested in learning that as well. There's something here to know. There's something here to associate this with, and that would be just really cool to be able to do that, to associate this plate with some company that did something for the war effort. If you know this or have any way to get me into that's easy and usable, please leave a comment. I'd appreciate that as well. All right, I'm going to finish cleaning this up, and then when I'm done cleaning it, I'll bring you guys all back, and I want to talk a little bit about the difference between cast iron and granite surface plates. I actually have a small granite surface plate, and we'll talk about the difference. And then I'll tell you why they went away from the cast iron over to granite, and then the granite obviously became the industry standard. bring you back when we're done. I have my granite surface plate on top of the new cast iron surface plate. This is much smaller. I do have another granite surface plate that's much larger than this. It's down on the floor. Sometime, I suppose if I wanted to, I could actually put that larger granite plate on this cast iron one and just use that, but I would lose some of the history by doing that. Why did they convert from cast iron to granite for inspection plates or surface plates? Well, the story goes that during the Second World War, any metals, any irons, any steels, aluminums, all became critical materials for the war. My dad tells me about doing, when he was a Boy Scout in the earliest parts of the war, they'd go around and they'd do metal drives and metal collections, and I guess that was something that happened throughout the country. So metals, scrap metals, any metals had become critical to the war effort. Well, you can't continue to use metals that might have a substitute for something else, which is why in some cases some of the aircraft were made out of plywood and other materials that weren't critical. So the story goes that these companies that manufactured these plates had to find other materials, and that's where the granite came in. Now, I'm not, like I said early in this video, I am not an expert on any of this, just what research that I've done, because my experience is fully with the granite plates, and they make granite in different grades. The grades, mostly in the grade of the granite itself. This is a gray granite. And I understand that it has something to do with the smoothness and how much or how level it can be surfaced to, or how flat it can be surfaced to. Again, if any of you out there are former inspectors and know this stuff much more detailed than I do, please feel free to share it in the comments. I'd love to understand this even better. So this is my small surface plate. It's the one I've been using for 20 years. It's just it does these small things. It's able to do what I need to do. Trouble is, I can't get larger things I'm working on here. I can only work within a small area, and that's the nice thing. That's why I got the larger surface plate, and why this larger granite surface plate is going to actually be very helpful for doing some of those bigger projects that I do. When you move this around, you can hear the smoothness of the glide. I'm hoping you can hear this. When you come over to the cast iron, it's still very smooth, but because they scrape this with chisels, there's little indents in there, and you can hear it as it bridges those indents. But again, it's still excellent, still very cool. So this cast iron plate, along with its oak and maple base, again, it's a piece of American history. I'm proud to have it here in the shop. And I certainly hope you found the video interesting. If you did enjoy this, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I appreciate you guys being here always. I appreciate the positive comments. I appreciate the support on Patreon, and I appreciate the super thanks that you guys give me for any video that's been meaningful to you. I will see you guys in the next video. You know, this little granite plate, I bet it weighs close to 100 pounds, maybe 75. So I think per inch, the granite is probably even heavier than the cast iron. Just amazing, amazing what we do. Amazing, amazing American industry. So proud to have been a part of it.